Oh, that means we're on. Nice. Well, thanks for being here. It's good seeing you again. It's been a while.
It has. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. So we can start off maybe hyping the wine shop up, being we have this delicious rosé here.
Nice. Yes, it's a very tasty Austrian rosé.
That doesn't have a cork in it and has a bottle cap.
No cork. Yep. Simplicity.
It really is. I mean, I actually feel like a lot of the wines that have twist offs, like Molly Duker has that, and that's a really good one.
Yeah.
Like people just think that just because it doesn't have a cork that it's not fancy, but
that's right. I've been to Molly Duker.
Have you?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
When?
I've been the last 2 years in Australia. Yeah.
Yeah. Right, for the study abroad thing.
That's right. Yeah.
I'm assuming they're not doing that this year.
No, it was canceled.
Yeah. Damn. That's got to be tough.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like that's something I regret not doing in college, doing the study abroad program, because I think that my friends that have done it loved it and it was such a good experience. You get to travel. So I feel like Australia would be such a cool trip to do. And I can't imagine being a college student right now and missing out on all that, all those opportunities.
Yeah, pretty disappointing this summer for us not to go, because when we have gone, the students have bonded unbelievably. And still today, those cohorts still gather together and send notes and stuff. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, I worked a little bit with some of the students this semester through the clinic, and I know that like just through talking with them, the experience is a lot harder. I mean, I think about my last year of college and how great that experience was. I mean, what are you seeing on campus? Is it affecting obviously it's affecting your students, but like how are they coping with it and what's the next step for them?
Yeah. It's interesting. Like if you look at it from a class standpoint, the classes I taught, the engagement stayed really high, which I was impressed with the student engagement. They interacted through our Zoom meetings. We had breakout meetings they continued to participate in. I would hold virtual co-working sessions and they'd show up, not required, and we'd talk about life and class and anything. So I think they were just looking for some type of normalcy or some type of connection. And I've always said I've never taught online because my favorite part of class is right before and right after, because that's when you can connect with the students because they let their guard down a little bit and will share. So we started losing that when we went online, and students lost that as well. I lost it, but they lost that engagement with other students. I think now, the classes for the spring semester are over, graduation is passed, even though we didn't hold it, we'll hold it later. It's just postponed at this point. Social media, Zoom, any type of visual connection is what they're trying to do. I think now go downtown, you see plenty of people gathering in more square, socially distanced or not. That's it. It's one way they're connecting. So.
Right. Yeah. And I think about all the things too. But I feel like I didn't do a very strong intro here. We just started talking, but we've been talking for a while now. But, we have Lewis Sheats here, who was not only has been a personal and professional mentor of mine for years, but was also a favorite college professor. And, to this day, every student that I talk to from NC State, I always say like, oh, have you taken one of Lewis's classes? And if not, I hype it up so much. Like our program, I think is obviously, I'm very biased, but I think it's the best one for many reasons. But so thanks for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got to agree. I'm also biased, but it's got to be the best.
I mean, it is. It definitely is.
Students make it the best. So,
right. Yeah. Well, not only that, but I always try to ask them like, have you guys gone to the mentorship meetings? Like, are you guys getting involved with more than just the classroom? Because that's what I think really sets it apart. I mean, being in class and being able to work on actual startups and everything, I think is such a unique learning experience in itself. But then being able to actually network with professionals and get that feedback, I think that's really what helped me develop as a professional and as an entrepreneur, was all the mentors. So
yeah, I mean, you nailed it, right? It's if you look at programs across the country, almost all of them have those same core classes that we teach, but it's that engagement and experiential learning which creates a differentiation. It's the embedment in the ecosystem through the mentor program or being downtown in the clinic, and all the other components and tools that add to the class are really, that is the differentiator, which makes our program so elite. And it's the students that then roll up their sleeves and do it, because you can't have both. I mean, you can't have it without both parts of the equation there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and do you remember the first time that I met you?
Yeah.
It was before I was in your class.
Yeah.
Do you remember?
I do.
Oh, you do?
We were standing in what was then the clinic, where the glass walls were, and I think Jeff Pollock, or I think it was Jeff and I were talking, and you heard something we said. Sorry. You heard something.
Yeah. Standard.
And then we started talking about the clinic and the accelerator. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We were there. We were up there with, I want to say his name was Zach, and he owned the bourbon company.
Yeah, Zach Branford.
What, 1712, I think, right? 1712 bourbon? Is that it? I hope it's it.
Oh, that's so bad. 1712. Yeah. That's right. I had to see it in my head. Yeah, 1712.
If not, then we'll just have to soundbite over that. No, just kidding. We don't edit this podcast, by the way. But I was working on his project for Jeff's intro class. So it was the new bourbon, North Carolina bourbon, and they had all the students going to the different restaurants and bars downtown and setting up meetings and selling the bourbon to them. So I got us a meeting with the manager at the pit, and now they started selling that bourbon after that. And we were up there, I think, trying to talk to Jeff about something for our class, and I did hear you guys talking about the accelerator and stuff like that, and I was like, wait, you guys are giving $50K away to students? Mm-hmm. You were like, well, do you have a startup? And I was like, I do. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that's just not really heard of. You don't. I don't.
And drawing a blank. What was it called before Simplify?
I don't know if it ever had a name. So I'm not creative at all. I mean, the podcast name, which is the dopest name on the planet, Talking Down the Aisle. Yeah, I did not come up with it. Figures. Actually, it was a guy that sat next to me at Cisco. We'd always bounce business ideas and come up with these whole business empires while we were bored. I won't say his name. He still works there. Yeah. But I was telling him about the podcast, and I was like, I need a name for it, though. I can't come up, and I don't want to make it the Bride Genie podcast. That's kind of lame. And it was almost like he was just telling me his name. He was like, oh, Talking Down the Aisle. I was like, oh my God, that is so good. I scooped up all the social media handles right then and there. But I don't remember, but it was not good. Whatever the name was, it was not good.
It was something Kata, I think. I don't know. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. I can't remember either. Actually, Morgan was the one who named it Simplified. I was talking to her this morning too, actually. Cool. She's in Charlotte right now, but that's the point. We're still such good friends, and we went through that whole program together, and
it was a cool circle too, because you were working with an alum. Zach was a former student who launched a company. You got to work with him. Then you came back in as an entrepreneur that launched a company to work with students and continue that circle. Yeah. No,
I think it's so great. And I think, I almost think that this is what I always try to tell the students, especially at the mentorship meetings, if they're in your class, I'm like, you guys really need to take advantage of the people around you right now, because the fact that I'm really thankful. I realized that I would never have the opportunity to be in the room with a lot of those people if I hadn't been in the mentorship program. So, I'm like, take advantage of them, in a good way. Use their resources and their knowledge. I know personally, I think back to some of the harsh realities and lessons that I learned through them. I mean, they definitely helped me grow up and mature faster and helped me get to a higher level quicker. So I just think that there's so much benefit, and you can just learn from them, and they're there to help the students. They genuinely want to. So it's cool.
Yeah, we started the mentorship program when you were there. In fact, I think you were the very first person that ever got up and gave your pitch in the mentor program.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised about that. We actually have a picture that we should probably talk about.
Nice.
If Scott wants to roll through some of these here. Well, there was the wine. Oh, there's actually.
That's where it was.
Was that the first one though?
I think it was the first one we had presentations. We might have had one before then, but I don't think the students actually got up and spoke. I think the mentor spoke at the first one.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I was not happy about that. I've come a long way though, right?
Oh yeah.
I couldn't public speak to save my life at that point. I was right there on the right there. Got those pink pants on.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who's speaking right now, but
yeah, so I'm trying to figure out who it was.
Sorry, kid. Roll through a couple more, Scott. Oh, there's some of the kids from the accelerator.
Yeah, that was Rithcore.
Yeah.
That was their concept. A T-shirt that firemen would wear to regulate their heartbeat or to measure their heartbeat. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. This one. Oh man.
Mm-hmm.
You remember this?
Yeah.
Do you know what this is from?
Yeah.
It
was in the classroom before we had a classroom in the clinic, and you were pitching to the students.
Yeah, but you know what happened that day is I walked into class and I sat down and I thought it was a normal day in school, and I was at class at HQ, and you got up and you were like, so I don't have anything planned today, so Cortney, you can pitch. Because we were going to go to Minneapolis like in a week or so. I had no idea. I was so just like instantly stomach dropped, like sweating bullets, nervous, and granted, the pitch was not refined. Got a lot of great feedback, but I was so mad. I was like,
I'll take back up one step. It's unlikely I didn't have anything planned. I probably had something planned for you to pitch. I just didn't tell you that was the plan. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's not much.
Because we were going to pitch for money. I wanted you to be prepared, and I wanted you to go through that experience where you have to get up and not know what's happening.
I mean, if you can't look at that picture and see my body language and how uncomfortable I am, and I'm just like, oh, man.
It doesn't even look like you from this far away.
No, it looks like somebody wants to run and hide in the corner and just wants to die. And, you know, it's... And you're like in a room of all your peers, and... it was brutal.
You did great.
Thanks. I had to bring that one up. I have no idea what this was though. But you were in the picture, so I figured you could talk.
That was from this year. We went to Boston during spring break with the students that live in the Albright Entrepreneurship Village. And the Build Lab is part of Boston University's entrepreneurship ecosystem. So.
That was something else I regretted going to, because we went to New York and then Silicon Valley.
Silicon Valley during spring break, and then New York during fall break, and then we would have we have offshoots of trips. The Boston one was offshoot.
Yeah, I never did any of those, but I wish I had. I think that would have been cool.
Yep.
But good old Schultz.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember who he is?
Yeah, Best Buy founder.
Yeah,
of course I remember. I met him. I have a picture with him too.
That's right. Yeah.
But we still. So this is another side note. We have the. I have a Tesla list for my friends, so that I worry about them and how they get home. So I figured this would be what I'd do when I made it really big. But then we still have the Cortney Cox School of Entrepreneurship that I owe you.
Down there.
But that's a lot bigger than the Tesla list. So.
I haven't forgotten.
I figured. Yeah. But it was all after this. So.
Yeah.
I think that's the same day as the other one.
Yep.
Hey, shout out.
I do have that shirt.
I know. I was like, there's a slight chance that you might wear it. And then I thought that would be... I should have told you.
Yeah.
We could have been twinning today.
Yeah. I could have worn at least an entrepreneurship shirt, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I did... Well, I got to get better at defining what people should be doing on this show, because I just wing it. But that's okay. That was the pink ceiling. That's always my favorite one. Now we're bouncing around. That one.
Yeah, the pink ceiling. Cindy and her crew are amazingly supportive of our students and me and all the members of our program. But they're always great hosts, and everybody leaves there just with a big smile and energized. It's really cool just what that space does for people.
Yeah, I think the ladies there are so, like you said, they're great. And Cindy has such a great story, and she's just very inspiring. I remember when I met her, I was just like, felt like I was meeting a celebrity the first time we talked. So that's always one of my favorite events.
I still feel like I'm meeting a celebrity every time I talk to her.
Right? Even after all these years.
Yeah.
Any other ones that we should roll through? Oh, that was the accelerator.
Yeah, that was a cool event that night. Sort of bringing the summer to an end, that pitch night.
Yeah, that's such a cool program, though. I mean, being able to work on the actual concepts throughout the time and then have that support, and it's structured. It's not just like, I'm sure age and experience has something to do with it, but I would say my biggest regret as like a young entrepreneur was doing it by myself. Like, I think that I thought I could do everything, and that's kind of where my downfall was. Whereas now I'm on a team of people and they're all so talented, and all of the things that I would never be able to do, they can help with and they excel in, and being able to bounce ideas and have that support. I mean, I think it's night and day. So I think of myself back then, and I'm like, I wonder how things would have changed if I had brought somebody else on board to kind of get you through it. And but I think you learn that kind of stuff as you go. And
it's a timing thing, right? You can't force it. You can't just plug somebody in there. You have to be able to identify what your weaknesses are and what your needs are, and then go out and find somebody that matches that. But add on to it, you have to get along. There has to be some type of communication connection. There's got to be some chemistry. I mean, it's almost like dating, right? You have to be able to find somebody, because when starting a startup, it's not a 9-to-5 job. It's 24/7. So you are essentially marrying this person that's going to be your partner, or people that are going to be your partner. So it's not as simple as I should just plug somebody in.
It really is. And like, I really do think that, like, I'm kind of blessed that the situation with Bride Jenny turned out the way it did. I mean, I'm working, crazy hours, like probably 120 hours a week sometimes. And I'm on the phone with my one partner probably 10, 15 times a day, but we get along so well. So that makes it easier. And even the other people on our team, actually, I don't think he was a student of yours. Do you know Praneet? He was involved with
Chirp.
Yes, he's on our team.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So, and he's amazing. I mean, very.
I like Praneet.
Yeah,
he's awesome.
He wanted me to tell you. He said, "Hey."
Cool.
So,
yeah.
But yeah,
I think you're thinking about the accelerator. It's a misconception that we're really trying to develop a company. It's still developing the person. So all of the things you went through class and through the accelerator does lead up to recognizing the right opportunity when you get to Bride Genie, right? So it's that's really what I'm personally measuring. Like, you're a good example of success, and it doesn't have to be the idea you came up with when you were 20 years old in school, because not very many people come up with good ideas when they're 20 years old in school. So
yeah, and that's a great point. It's like, too, that's the time to try stuff and either fail or to experiment and try different ideas. And even if it's not necessarily business, if it's like entrepreneurship related or not, your major, maybe not your major so much, but try to pick something to stick with. But just to try things. And I mean, I've tried so many different startups and been a part of different teams, and then tried the corporate world out for a little bit and learned a lot. But I think that's a really good way to look at it. It's developing the entrepreneur.
Cool.
That's cool. I like that. Well, cool. So what are you seeing on the side of just, not so much for the students, but I mean, we have the Short Walk wine shop that you and Cindy have, and just from a ecosystem, I mean, it's obviously kind of a difficult time for everybody adapting to this new way of life that we're dealing with. Yeah.
And so we can talk pre-COVID, we can talk current situation, post-COVID, what it's going to look like. I think pre-COVID, if you look at where we are across the whole country, we're in a really cool space, right? We have a really young population, very innovative, very entrepreneurial, for the most part, across the board, right? And then if you drill down into North Carolina and Raleigh, we're sort of like hyper focused on that. Like, you've got high population of educated adults, a high population of young educated adults that are willing to try new things. But if you look at entrepreneurship, it's not just the ones that are doing it, right? You need the customers. And where we are, it's a great place to try something because you have this plethora of people that will tell you if it's a good idea or not, right? If they'll purchase your product, if they'll use it. And we continually saw that, right? So if it's a software company, you have access to lots of customers. If it's retail or if it's a consumer product, you have access to a lot of customers. And in Raleigh, we're typically early adopters, early movers, so you can get feedback really quickly. And that's not the case everywhere else. We live in a little pretty cool bubble because of that. COVID hits, it's a little, everything is unknown now. So people become more conscientious of what they spend money on. People start losing jobs. People start getting reduced pay, and that changes people's habits. That changes people's habits from a consumer standpoint, but also changes people's habits from, should I go launch a company? Should I quit my job that's paying me every 2 weeks, every month to start a company? It becomes a little reckless at that point. But on the flip side of that, a lot of people got furloughed or lost a job. And now, what do you got to lose? Like, let's try and let's look for an opportunity and then move forward with that. And we will see that, right? We will see companies that pivot and recognize new opportunities. Spiffy is a great example. Spiffy is a mobile car washing unit or a company. They have not completely pivoted, but they made a huge pivot where now they focus on sanitation of cars, rental cars, and consumers, right? So now all of a sudden, instead of a pandemic that crushes their business, it actually creates an opportunity to grow their business in markets they normally probably would have never focused on. In fact, I know they wouldn't have focused on. We've had this discussion. So it changes. It's not necessarily bad all the time. I'm not discounting people being out of work and those problems.
Of course.
That's tough, but it also creates great opportunities for us to take advantage of and build solutions. Right before this, I left a meeting and we were discussing a new material for masks that's being developed on campus, right? We probably weren't really focused on facial masks 4 months ago on campus.
Right.
But this could be a really cool spin out that comes from the technology that's already developed on NC State's campus because of the situation we're in. So I always look at what's the opportunity and how do you take advantage of it?
Yeah, I think that's a really great point. That's interesting. I didn't realize that Spiffy was pivoting towards sanitation, but what a great idea. I mean, are they doing that for Uber drivers and things like that, or is it more on a...
Yeah, probably, but one of the big customers that moved them that way, I'm not sure the actual brand, but it was a large rental company where...
Oh, okay.
Rental
I
car
see.
comes back.
Like if Enterprise came to them and said, "Hey, we need you to sanitize these cars."
Exactly. Yep.
Got it. Smart.
Yeah.
I mean,
yep.
Because who else is getting their car washed? I mean, I probably should have got mine washed months ago.
Yeah. Well, I drove mine for the second time since March today.
Nice.
And it needed washing, and luckily it's raining, so I'm done.
So you don't need to worry about it.
Squirt some soap on there on the way home.
Right. Perfect. Exactly. Well, but it is about the opportunity. I mean, we looked at that too. We were looking at this, and we're kind of blessed because it's software, so it's not as affected as some of the vendors that are in our space. You know, wedding vendors, it's hard to make an opportunity out of being a wedding planner if there are no weddings. But for us, it changed our launch strategy to, okay, we'll do Raleigh, and then we'll go to South Carolina and Virginia, and then we'll do the Southeast and then the Northeast, like, you know, a slow, steady growth to, hey, let's partner with people around the country and launch nationally because everybody needs this.
Yeah.
So,
well, that's the thing. Like just because COVID hit, people are not going to not get married, right?
Right.
They might delay it. They might change the way they originally planned on getting married, but they're not going to not get married, right? This is going to continue as a tradition. So it creates an opportunity for Bride Genie, for example, to differentiate themselves from the traditional wedding planner that can't pivot and can't move fast enough and adapt to the changes that are happening in the industry.
Yeah.
Right? So,
well, don't say that. We like wedding planners. They use Bride Genie. We don't compete with them.
The ones that are too slow. That's what I'm talking about.
I got you.
That don't recognize the value of Bride Genie.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. If you don't recognize our value, then you're going to get left behind because everybody else is going to be using us.
That's right.
And who are you, ABC wedding planner, who doesn't use Bride Genie?
Exactly. It's a miss. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. But I think that's a good way to look at it is, this sucks. And, but how do you turn it into a positive, even though it's a shitty situation? So, I mean, obviously for some businesses, they can't do that, but I think a lot of them can at least utilize the time that they're not in business, to figure out what's the next step. Like, how do we be proactive during this time so that we're not behind when we can reopen?
Yeah, and there's phases, right? So when the first stay-at-home order or sort of shutdown happens, we're all sort of in shock. You don't know what to do. You either go one path where you just overload, right? You wake up and you work until you go to sleep, and then you just burn out really quickly, or you just sort of like, I'm going to just lay on the couch and binge Teen Mom or something like that, right? So you
out of all the shows, Teen Mom is your go-to.
I'm a reality TV junkie. So,
okay, fair.
So like there's those two extremes, but eventually enough time starts to pass and you realize like I gotta do something. I gotta take advantage of this. So you're gonna start seeing it more. You'll see companies that are either recognizing inefficiencies, and this is now the time to fix it. And that might be changing the staff. It might be changing what the staff do. It might be changing who the customer is, how they deliver to the customer. Or you'll see companies that completely pivot to a more appropriate customer, right? We're at that stage now where that's starting to happen. You'll see it in some of the restaurants, right? So some of the restaurants that will close, for the most part, they're closing because they never were able to capture that market, right? They never were able to, pick who's the customer and who are we trying to deliver to, or they weren't able to get the message to the right people. The restaurants that were always packed, they're going to be here afterwards, right? They have that customer base, and the customer base isn't going to leave. It might shift. It might change how they consume the product, whether it's a restaurant or anything, but it's not necessarily going to change, right?
Right. That's a good point too. The ones that are not going to make it through this probably weren't doing great.
It just accelerates.
Right.
It accelerates one or the other. It accelerates the death because you all of a sudden you just pull all the money away, and then there's not enough to sort of tread water, or it accelerates the good ones, restaurants or companies, the good ones to build stronger products and stronger offerings, right? So it's going to be, you'll have some in the middle, but you're going to have those two extremes happen pretty quickly, probably right around now. Yeah.
So what are you guys seeing? Like, and I'm going to use this as a segue to open another bottle of wine here. But so, hold on. Oh, sorry, everybody who can hear this probably pretty well. So what are you guys seeing at the wine shop? I mean, is that something that I'm sure there's been a decrease because just people probably aren't going out as much? Maybe not, though. I don't know. I feel like my alcohol consumption is through the roof right now.
It's amazing, right? So so we own a wine shop. My wife and I own a wine shop, but I'm not a wine person. I'm a spreadsheet guy, right? So
do you know how to pronounce this one?
Bergamota. I think it's Italian.
Short walk?
Or French. Yeah, short walk, I can tell you that. So from the wine industry, it's been fascinating. We're up like 141%.
No way.
And if you think about our habits, right? As soon as the stay-at-home order came into play, I can tell you I started drinking like at 2:00 a couple of days because why not? I'm on Zoom for 10 to 12 hours a day. Eventually, you gotta make those Zoom meetings more exciting. So you crack a beer, or you open up a bottle of wine, or as Scott might do, he gets a Truly or something, right? So
Scott only drinks Trulies because I force him to drink Trulies.
So that was happening, and then you start looking at how behavior was changing, right? You weren't having to get up early in the morning to go to work, right? You didn't have to drive home after going out to a bar. So you could consume every night of the week without the consequences that we normally would have if we were in that routine of having to get up. So because of that, the wine consumption and alcohol across the country is up right now. What really changed for us was, that's awesome. What changed for us is how we delivered the wine, right? So before, 20% of our sales came from people coming in and having a glass of wine in the shop. Well, that went away immediately. So that 80% that bought a bottle and took it home then became 100% of our business. Then we weren't allowed to have people in the store. So that changes. So we built a website over a Sunday, basically. I built the website over a Sunday and put, we started with 10 bottles of wine, then it was 20, now it's 200 and some bottles of wine on the website that people could order any time of day and then pick it up or have it delivered for free downtown or have it shipped to them. So now our entire business model went from 20% of the people came in, had glasses of wine, bought a bottle, went home. 80% were buying bottles, take them home and consume them, to everything went pick up at the curb or have it delivered. And now 80% of our sales come from online sales. 20% people just walk up to the store.
That's insane.
But the total is increased, right? So our average sale has doubled, and then our number of sales has increased. So it's been a
cheers to that.
Fascinating little business. Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's fun. Yeah.
Ooh, it's good.
Yeah.
What is this?
I have no idea. I'm not a wine guy. I'm a spreadsheet guy. I can tell you the margin.
Okay, that's fair.
It's I can't read it either. It's
numbers guide, not a letters guy either, huh?
Yeah, I got nothing. It's actually Portugal. Not Halsey's going to be so upset with me.
Oh boy,
it's from Portugal.
You're gonna get fired.
It's red. I can tell you that.
Yeah, it's good. I like it.
Yeah.
I literally went up to what was her name?
Kaylee was there
Kaylee.
the day you went.
Yeah, and I was like, this is probably gonna sound really weird, but what is Lewis like? She was like wine? I was like, yeah. And she was like, she went and she's like, I don't know. Let me look at his recent purchases. I was like, okay.
Yeah, that's terrible.
So she went through and scrolled through them. And she started listing some stuff, and I know I like rosé, so I was like, well, and I know you like rosé too. So I was like, let's do a rosé, pick any of them, I don't care. And then she mentioned, I think, a Chardonnay, which is my favorite white, but I figured it's kind of close to the rosé, so we'll get some variety here today. But
yeah,
no, it's good.
For Kaylee's sake, she hasn't been there long enough. She doesn't know, and I haven't been able to drink in the wine shop since she started, actually. So she came right before the stay-at-home order. So I'll give her a pass on not knowing what I like, but it's actually pretty hard to pick because I'll drink anything.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll drink Trulies and red and rosés and beer. So yeah,
that's fair. I feel like I'm not a big beer drinker. However, my one girlfriend turned me on to Sour Monkey. Have you had that?
Sour. I don't know if I've heard. I've had a Golden Monkey.
It's the same company but sour.
Okay.
So it's got stupid alcohol content, and I don't know what it is, but it's really high. And so I can't drink many of them. I say that before quarantine, I couldn't drink many of them. Now I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's probably the only beer I actually would go to the store and buy.
Yeah.
Other than that,
interesting. Yeah.
It doesn't really do anything for me. Love wine, tequila, vodka, but even gin. But and then bourbons and stuff, I don't really drink bourbon or anything brown.
I'm an equal opportunity drinker. I'll drink anything. Yeah.
Not picky.
I'm not.
That's good. I mean, that's good.
Yeah.
But like I said, I don't think I'm picky either. Plus, I guess it depends on where we're at in the night.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's hard to drink tequila at noon, right?
Yeah, I'm certainly not.
On a Tuesday.
Yeah. I'm certainly not drinking tequila in the day. Yeah. That's more like, we're going out and I mean, then tequila court's a thing. It's a whole thing. It's all over
Fair
from
enough.
there. But yeah. So anyway, so that we don't seem like complete alcoholics. But that's really great. I mean, I figured it would be still doing well, but I didn't realize that you guys were doing the online orders like that. Does that change your liability? I mean, or do you just have to check IDs when the person is picking it up?
Yeah, same as if they were coming in the shop. They still have to, we card if they look under whatever, 25, 35, whatever again, I don't actually work in the shop, so I don't know what the rule is.
Yeah, fair.
But yeah, we still have those precautions in place, but yeah, it doesn't really. And then if we ship wine, which we're allowed to ship, it's adult signature required. So same thing as anybody else would have to do. So.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. That's cool though, because I knew they had those wine programs, that you could order some from. So I just didn't know if there were any like additional insurances or anything that you had to get for that.
Yeah, I mean we're covered what we have. Yeah, what we had before. So,
that's pretty cool though. I mean, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Now I might have to order some more wine instead of Truly's.
Yeah.
Truly's are a little bit cheaper though.
Yeah, that's true.
I still gotta try that margarita one, but anyway, we'll get back on topic to something either like business or NC State related, so that we're not going off of too much on a tangent. But technically, we did ditch the finals at eFest for Mexican restaurant and margaritas. You remember that?
I remember. Yeah. I don't remember eating. I know we drank something that night, though.
I was trying to like save us a little bit by saying that we went to a restaurant.
Did we actually eat though? I don't think we actually ate.
I don't think so. We were over it at that point.
Yeah, it was rigged. It was hopefully Schultz doesn't listen to this one day, or maybe he should.
Yeah. It was. We won't get into that.
Yeah.
I know some of the people that we were at the contest, I'm still kind of in contact, but that kind of goes back to what you were saying about how tight knit the entrepreneurship community is. I mean, that was 3 years ago now, at least. And like, they'll still reach out to me on like Instagram or Snapchat when they see me posting stuff like this.
Yeah,
and,
that's
great. I mean, that's pretty crazy. I met them for one weekend.
Yeah,
3 years ago.
Yeah, it does bode to the community no matter where you are, right? So if you're coming from Raleigh or Minneapolis or the Northeast or Texas, like that, once you've got that entrepreneurial bug or that mindset built into you, you start it's easier to connect with other people that have the same thought, right? And for the most part, entrepreneurs are supportive of each other, and they realize the pain and the loneliness that happens when you go through that, and so they want to be supportive because they know they need it as well in certain situations. So yeah,
and it's like you're more empathetic towards everything. Like my best friend, I think it's so funny because she's such a nice girl. Like, she's the sweetest person on the planet. Shout out Claire. But anytime, like, she would do, I feel like, anything for me, and her only contingency is that we hang out a little bit before it happens. Like, one day I needed her to drive me to the airport, and she had no problem doing it as long as we could hang out and drink some mimosas before. And I mean, like, there's not a lot of people that aren't entrepreneurs. She was actually my engineer at NetApp. That are that supportive of the fact that, like, you don't have a life outside of work for the most part. And then they'll just try to take advantage of the little time you do have to, like, hang out with you and be with you. But I think that's rare, and that's why people in that community kind of gravitate towards each other and why it is so tight knit.
Yeah, that's pretty cool,
right? Like, you don't see that a lot. Most people would get frustrated, like, that you can never hang out, and it's like, I'm not trying to blow you off, but like,
you're working, you're building, right?
Yeah, so, I'll have calls with especially because most of our dev team is in India. So like my one partner will have calls at like 2 a.m. And then sometimes because he has another job. So the only time we'll be able to talk is like at 11 o'clock at night. So I'll have calls then. It's like, it never stops. But at least it's fun. Like, that's why you have to do something you love. Because if you don't love it and you have to live it it becomes painful, right? Yeah.
So, and it is a lot of work, and there's no time clock. I have a buddy who's a banker, and we joke about the differences and we could never switch places, right? He loves what he does, and I love what I do. But there's no time clock in entrepreneurship. You're on 24/7, but you still need to make time for yourself. You need to make time for family and those types of things. But you're doing it at a price, right? You have to realize you're still pushing forward and you're building, no matter what time of day it is. And it's tough, and that's why most people don't survive and don't make it. Yeah.
Yeah, and for me, like, I remember, I won't drop names, but like a corporate job that I had that we probably had our most recent discussion about. Mm-hmm. I remember sitting there and I was so just miserable. And it wasn't that the company was bad. It wasn't anything about the people I worked with or the company itself. It was just like, that isn't me. Like, mm-hmm. I'm not corporate America. And actually, my favorite term that one of my other friends said was like the golden handcuffs, right? Like, you get paid a lot of money, you're good at what you do, it's easy, and you have the nice 9-to-5 lifestyle. But I remember going over to my friend's desk and I was just having like just head to toe anxiety, like couldn't stop looking at the clock and just hated it. And it's like, yeah, I could have a life and I could go out with my friends and I was making a lot of money, but at what was the cost? It was like my sanity and my happiness. And then once Bride Genie came along, like, it was done. I was out. I mean, there was nothing in the world that was going to keep me there because I was back in that world that I loved. Yeah. So I think that's kind of what's unique about small business owners and any entrepreneur is like, you truly, like, even though you're working these insane hours, if you love it and you believe in it and you're passionate about it, like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at the statistics, the average age of an entrepreneur is 47 years old now that is starting a new company. Wow. 47 or 48, something like that. But it makes sense, especially you're living it, right? So you have this early stage right out of college where you don't have the golden handcuffs, as you said, right? Mm-hmm. You don't really have anything to lose. You can try things. You could launch a company if you totally failed. Like, so what, right? What have you lost, right? You can rebuild everything you had, mm-hmm. like in a day, right? You didn't have much to lose. Most 22-year-olds just don't have that much to lose, right? So, but once you get into corporate world and, you're getting that bi-weekly paycheck or that monthly paycheck, it's really tough to say, hey, I'm gonna leave that, especially if you've got the mortgage, the car payment, kids, you start, something like that. Yeah, kids, spouse, you start liking nice things, you start spending money on going out and playing or whatever. Right. It's harder to go get away from that. So between our, mid 20s to mid 40s, most people get stuck in that rut because you really can't leave. And then at that 45 plus, not everybody by any means, but a lot of people get to the point where they've got enough saved or they've got enough comfort where maybe I can actually do this. Mm-hmm. In addition to that, they've also been able to live and see problems and gaps that are existing in the industries that they have lived in for the last 20 years, and now they can do something about mm-hmm. it, right? So it's weird from an outside perspective to say, man, why are entrepreneurs so much, like first-time entrepreneurs so much older at 47 when so much energy is at 22? But if you add all those components to it, it starts to make sense.
Yeah, that's a crazy statistic. I did not realize that was the average age, though that makes sense. I guess I'm, especially in Raleigh, we have such a strong young entrepreneurship community, thanks to, people like yourself with NC State. I mean, you really encourage that. But that's certainly not the norm, and I think I don't consider that. But I think there's a lot of value in being in the corporate world, the way that I felt about not enjoying it didn't happen more till the end of my time in the corporate world. Granted, it wasn't a long span; we're talking like 2.5 years. So it wasn't like I was there for 10 years and then I was just like, oh my God. But I guess I'm glad it hit me a little bit quicker. And like I said, Bride Genie certainly accelerated it because I wasn't thinking that way before, at least not as heavily until that happened. And I was like, oh, right. Like this is what I am. But I lost my train of thought. Oh boy.
It's the one.
I mean, but it shouldn't be. I think it's just that something about being young and an entrepreneur. Oh yeah, duh. Oh God. Whew. Sorry. Really, that you do get a lot of valuable experience out of being in a corporate environment. I mean, my team actually kind of makes fun of me because I think every demo that I do of the app and every conversation when I'm first introducing the app, I always say, so I'm going to tell you like a high level overview. And like, it's a very corporate term. And even yesterday, I was in the car with two people on my team and I was explaining to them a spiff. You know what a spiff is, right? They had no idea what I was talking about. And it's such a silly sounding word. So they just looked at me like, what? And I was like, oh, right. Like normal people don't say spiff or know what that means because that's like a stupid acronym that I have no idea what it stands for. But so I think there's definitely value in trying it. And I'm very thankful I did. I think some of my closest friends came from the corporate world. And I learned a lot.
Well, there's huge value in learning on someone else's dime, right?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, especially depending on the space you're in, the processes that you learn, how to interact with other people that don't think like you, right? So in entrepreneurship, we typically are hanging out with people that think like us. So you're in a bubble, right? But once you get into corporate world, people don't think like you. And I can imagine, and I know this is true because we've had many conversations about this, that it becomes frustrating because you want to do something, you want to do it faster, and it just doesn't typically operate that way. So, but learning from that experience can then set you up for more success later. And I think you're living it right now, right? You went through the Simplify startup, and you tried things, you sacrificed a lot of things to do that. Learn from it. You move, you learn from that next experience in corporate world, and now you combine those two with Bride Genie, like you got all the pieces. It's perfect. So,
right. Yeah, and I think a lot of people too, they might be afraid to try something on their own, or they might not know exactly what they want to do. I mean, Bride Genie, obviously, as you know, was not my idea. I didn't come up with the concept or build the technology. It was my one partner, and he was probably in that, I won't say how old he is because I don't know, and he'll probably get mad at me when he watches this, but, he is in the average age group of entrepreneurs. He has other businesses as well, and then he has a corporate job, and one of his businesses is a wedding venue. So he saw the frustration of how crappy it is for brides when they're going through this process of trying to find all their vendors. They realize that vendor owners, they don't have any options. Like the things that he was using for his venue were terrible and cost a fortune. So came up with something better. But kind of to my point too earlier about being a solo entrepreneur, Bride Genie has been like in development now for 4 years, and I think that he built such great technology and then hit a wall because him and the guy who's our other partner who built it, they needed help on the business side. So they brought in myself and Chad, and then we kind of elevated it. And we look at where we were back in September, October to where we are now, and it's exponential growth. So it's really like you have the great idea, you are able to build the product, and then once you have all the pieces of the team, that's when it comes to fruition.
Right.
And but that takes a lot of time and money. I mean,
takes a lot of time, definitely, to build the right team. And the right team, I mean, just an hour ago gave the same presentation. The right team recognizes the right product. They recognize the right customer. They know when to pivot. They recognize how to spend money, when to spend money. And that's really what you've come across, right? You build out the team on multiple levels. And if you look back, like looking at your learning experience, I have a cool insight on it because I've been able to see it for a few years. You didn't have those other components, right? So now you've got those. It's pretty cool to see.
Yeah. No, I mean, I feel the same way. I think it's really, it is a cool thing to kind of piece together, and especially being so like young still, and I think that helps too, because it kind of fuels the team. And I was in that situation where we had layoffs, and it was, I mean, I'm sure you remember the conversation, and I was just like, what do I do? Like, I don't know. Do I go all in? Do I kind of hang back? And that's not an easy conversation to have with even another person, but with yourself. And that was certainly the worst week in a very long time for me. I mean, just all the emotions and the thoughts that you have to go through, and then taking everybody's opinions that I was talking to into consideration. And then ultimately,
but if you look back on it, like, and this is typical, right? The reason it's so bad is because of the anxiety builds, because it's the unknown, right? You just don't know what to do. You don't know what's coming. But now that you look back on it, you realize, like, actually, that was probably one of the best things that could happen to me. Like, put me in the situation where I had to make a decision, because if it hadn't happened, maybe you would have done both for a while, and then both of them would have been, one would have been dragging you down, and then you would have been dragging Bragini down or dragging it slower. It puts you in a good position. So I get it in the moment. It's anxiety ridden. It's frustrating. It's a bad feeling, but I always think it's going to get better.
Yeah.
And it might actually be pretty good. We just don't recognize it yet. So. And
too, like, I 100% agree. Like, you get in your own head, right? And you're just like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And I have the piece of paper too, and I have a picture of it too. When I met with two of my partners, and we had this conversation, and I told them, like, hey, like, this is what's happening, and these are what I'm thinking about. I have a couple different options. I just don't really know what to do. And we sat there and wrote down, and that's kind of the other beautiful thing, is that both my partners have more experience than I do. So they're business partners for me, but I also consider them to be mentors, which is, I think, the perfect business relationship.
It's awesome. Like, you recognize what your weaknesses are. One of your weaknesses is that you don't have that experience yet, right?
Yep, got it. But it's true. And, I think that one day we'll have to, like, frame this, but we laid out all the options, and, like, at the top, it came down to, like, how much do you believe in this? And my one partner, Chad, he was like, you're either going to, on the top of this paper, it says, like, bet on yourself. He was like, this is going to take off. We're going to kill it. Like, this is going to be the top wedding industry software in the world. Like, but you need to bet on yourself. And at times, like, especially when you're used to getting these nice paychecks and you're not getting that at first, and it's going to be like, you're going to panic, but you need to be able to, like, mentally overcome that. Yeah. And that was, like, I think the best advice I could have gotten, and, like, the reassurance, but that's the kind of stuff that I would never have gotten if I was completely by myself. It's like,
right. Yeah.
It's just other people that are still, and also at risk, right? Like, we all have money in, we all have time put in, we have our names and our reputation in. So it just works. Yeah. So it's cool.
Good. Yep.
Yeah. So cheers to that.
Cheers.
Should we go back to rosé or stick on red?
I don't know. We normally don't jump back and forth between rosé and red, so
I know, but I wanted variety, and I'm drinking faster than you are, which is, I think, alarming.
which is really strange, obviously. Should we just mix them, and then it becomes like?
Well, then it's just like, that's kind of, I don't know if I should say this, but that's like the flight attendant joke that my mom tells, is when people ask for a rosé, they'll just mix. People have no idea.
Let's not mention the airline. So.
It's Delta. Oh man, I don't know. Hey Scott, you want some red? He's good.
Yeah. Cool.
But yeah, I think it's it's been a ride, but I think that's it. It's a ride, and there's gonna be highs and lows, and you gotta stick through it.
You got to figure out not to get depressed when it's low and not get too high when it's high, right? That's the way I've lived, at least. Like, you always be happy and sort of ride the wave, and hopefully you get this up and down pattern in life, but hopefully that up and down pattern is like trending upwards the whole time, right? And if you live it that way, every entrepreneurial journey is going to be fun and successful, even the ones that fail, right? because maybe not at the moment, right? As they're failing, there's nothing fun about that. I get it. But looking back on it, there's still some really cool things you learn from that then you can build upon. And then you realize it's a longer journey made up of many, many smaller journeys, right? And if you focus on the longer journey, that's going to be the cool thing that you can remember, and not focus on the bad ones that happen along the way. Focus on the bigger picture. It's going to be pretty cool.
Yeah. But I think that's something that, like, how do you overcome that? I mean, when you have put everything, your time, your money, your sanity into something and then it fails, I mean, to get back up and like get back on the horse and try something else, especially to try something else that's also a startup or entrepreneurial, is not easy. Like, how do you get past that mental block and confidence?
But it's how you're measuring failure, right? So just because a concept fails doesn't mean you failed, right? So what are you measuring? Are you measuring the little things that are the different components? Or are you measuring the big picture of you, right? So I'm, especially for you and our relationship, I don't really, this is maybe hard, I don't really care about the concepts, right? And I care about you and thinking about all the different components that are happening. Like, if I just look at you, it's a pretty cool, successful path that you're on. If I just picked out like one day, I might say, man, this is a really crappy day.
Right.
But why would you just focus on that when you look at, let's stack all the days together and you say, oh, this is actually pretty cool what's happening here, right? I equate it to like walking the Appalachian Trail. I haven't done a lot of it, but I've done enough to know that it's very painful and hard, right? So like, if you only drill into like the mountain that you're climbing and it becomes really painful and hot and sweaty and tiring, then nobody would ever do it. But if you add in the fact that once you get over the mountain and you come out on the other side and you see like the balds in North Carolina, and that experience, like, that's the things you remember and you think, man, that was so freaking awesome. And nobody thinks about, eventually you start thinking about the bad part of it. You think about how freaking awesome was that? Like, so put that in an entrepreneurial perspective. I can go back, 24 years ago when we made our first sale, right? For $11. Like $11, really, it's really nothing in the grand scheme of things. But that moment, like, I can still feel that elation, right? But there was so many bad moments where we were broke and starving and couldn't pay our bills and all of these other components that if I look back and thought about when I couldn't pay rent or I couldn't pay the power and it got cut off, if I focus on that, it would be a pretty crappy way to look at it. But thinking about that first sale, that's a lot of high, right? There's a lot of excitement there, even 24 years later, right? I think I'm doing the math right. Yeah, 24 years later. That's
ship it, cool. Send it. What was it?
It was called Interstate Logistics. It was called
What was the motto, though?
Anything, anytime, anywhere.
Yeah.
Terrible motto. Never do that. No professor should ever teach you that.
But that was like your intro to everything, every class, I think.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I wrestle on actually having that conversation with students because it's such a bad model. But it's the reason I share that is credibility, right? So I'm not teaching things that I have not lived ever, right? Every theoretical component that I'm trying to get students to believe in, every practical experience I'm trying to get students to believe in, I've lived, and I want them to realize there's got to be some trust factor, right? And that's the reason I tell those terrible mistakes that I made that happened, but I learned from them, so you don't have to, hopefully, as a student, as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, but it's why I know for a fact, not even from personal experience, but just the people that I talk to, why you are so highly respected as a professor is that we know it's not just bullshit. You know, like if you came in and said that you just had all these glory moments and bragged on all your accomplishments, everybody would be like, all right, this guy, like, cool.
It'd be done in a day.
Right.
What would I do for the rest of the 15 weeks? Right?
Right. We'd be like, oh, okay. But it makes it more relatable. And especially, I think, like, when they're trying to go through the whole process. And that's what I feel for them, because you mentioned, I think one of the first things was before and after class. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I'd be there early or stay after so we could catch up on stuff that I was working on for my startups. And, it is more personable and real, and it's not the lesson plan of the day. It's like, hey, this is real life and we're talking about it. So, but it makes it more relatable. So yeah,
I think for me, it's those coffee meetings. Like, how many coffee meetings that we had that have been so much more impactful than sitting in class, right? Like the class, there's a purpose to it, and hopefully you got something out of class. It wasn't totally wasted. But it's not really the big picture. It's like all the other things, like sitting at that Mexican restaurant where you drank too many margaritas. I don't think I drank anything that night, but yeah. So like those are the things that start combining and making the whole experience and the learning experience, right? The whole time, right? And it's not necessarily professor-student relationship, right? That's from, what was your friend that always wants to experience, that took you to the airport?
Claire.
Claire, right?
Shout out Claire.
Yeah, so it's the same thing with Claire, right? Mm-hmm. It's all of those other times that you're just spending and connecting that make the whole thing so important and worth it, right? Not just the one thing, right? Yeah.
This is completely off topic, but why I love Claire. So during quarantine, my girl was just stuck at home. She actually just bought a house, which is great. I mean, she's younger than I am, so shout out to her. But super bored and wanted stuff to do, wanted to hang out. And, I was in here because this studio did not look like this when I came here. Yeah. Scott built the studio, and it was just, they were filming, or not even filming, they were recording bands in here. So you didn't even see, I'll have to walk you around afterwards and show you what we did. But they just needed it to be, functional. And I think it needed a little bit of a woman's touch. No offense, Scott. But so Claire, especially because it was like the beginning of quarantine, so she was working virtual. So she wanted to work together. And I was like, girl, like I'm building this, like I'm renovating the studio. I was like, I'm gonna be here all day. So she would come and just like in between her meetings, like she helped me paint all these walls and like do all the decorations, help me bring this table down with a couple of my other friends, and like just everything. She was all about it. She wants to come and like watch episodes. She's just like number one fan, like nice. Just the best. But I
like the idea of like a live studio audience. That would be cool.
Wouldn't that be cool? Yeah. I know. I was like, you do realize you can't like talk to us though. You gotta be like, poor Scott's like
the laugh clap, right? I mean the clap,
like 90s sitcom laughter in the background.
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah, I'm a big fan of your background because it makes me think there's light coming in, but I know it's just reflection. So it seems like it's going to be really bright when we get out tonight. But
you don't feel like you're in a dungeon basement?
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we had to... The background was a topic of conversation. We tried like a few different curtains, and then at one point it was almost a sequence curtain, but Scott put a hard no on sequence. He was not feeling it, which
good call on that.
Yeah, it's okay. And then I ordered a velvet one, like the one behind you, but it was gray because I didn't want it to be all black in here. But it never came. It just never showed up. So I ordered this one, and I think it actually turned out pretty good. You know, like I like it reflects the light well. But
I'm on Zoom meetings probably like 8 to 10 hours a day. This would be a great place for a Zoom meeting all day long. I could just have that as a background. I could just rotate throughout the room.
There you go. You can at least like get some some variety. Hey, I have a strict like nobody can use this studio room, but me and Scott. But I would give you access. Thanks. I think Scott would be okay with it.
Appreciate it.
Even though he was like, "Whose wine shop is that?" He's very protective, but it's
that's good.
It's from a good place. Yeah,
absolutely.
Right. Yeah. But no, it needs decorations, obviously, but that's what the oh no jar is for. So as we start to continue to mess up. Which I'm definitely getting better at, but...
Well, you only put $1 in, and you hadn't asked me to put $1 in, so I'm thinking it must be.
It doesn't apply to guests. I had a guest who was saying my word that I can't say the whole episode, and it was driving me crazy because I also wanted to say that word and then I couldn't. Yeah. So I don't even want to say what it was, but
is it absolutely?
It is. I said it like every single time that I was answering this. That's funny. Yeah, but you don't. One, I'm so bad at watching myself. Like even we had this after our event, so we're partnered with the people that put on the bridal shows here in Raleigh, and after each show, they'll do a few weeks later. They call it a vendor blender, and it's all the vendors in the show can go and just network with each other. Yeah. And it was almost like a flashback from class, and they were just like, "Oh yeah, you want to speak?" And I'm like 30 glasses of wine in. I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" Yeah. So I had to get up there and talk, and one of the girls on my team recorded it, and she was putting it on our social media. I have not watched it to this day. I have them, but I can't watch it. Yeah. But I've watched the podcast, and they come out really well because Scott does a good job. But it's hard to watch yourself, but then you start picking up on those little cues that you do, and try not to fidget and try not to say those words constantly that you say. And
so is Scott going to be able to erase my southern drawl throughout the...
No, unfortunately he's not going to be able to do that, but it's not too bad. It was coming out a little bit at one point. I was like thinking, you sound real country right now.
Yeah, I am.
That's rare though. There's not a lot of people born and raised in Raleigh.
So I was born in Raleigh, but I was raised in Red Springs, North Carolina, which is like an hour and a half southeast of here, which the landmark would be south of the border on the
I think I've heard of. Yeah.
You've definitely ridden by south of the border. Big sombrero in the sky.
Yes. I've seen that.
So I grew up like 25 miles from there, something like that. Yeah. So,
okay. Yeah. And then you came back for state?
Yeah. Never left.
After.
Yeah.
So you did the shipping company here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in Raleigh.
Anywhere, anytime, any place?
Anything, anytime, anywhere. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I didn't know that. I thought that was...
No. I lived in Raleigh until I was like 2. My parents moved back to their hometown, and then I came back to Raleigh as an 18-year-old and have been here ever since.
That's sort of been crazy, though, just because I know... just talking to people that haven't even been here that long, how much it's changed over the last couple of years. Yeah. Like people told me that you could ride like 4-wheelers down where 440 is. Yeah. I mean, that to me blows my mind.
Well, when I was in college, like we got a truck stuck on Centennial campus. There wasn't anything there. It was a mud pit and a lake, right? So, or even like maybe 10 or 12 years ago, you could walk down Fayetteville Street and not see a single person. Like literally after 5 o'clock, you walk from one end to the other and not see a person. And now we live downtown. It's like totally different environments. Crazy. Yeah.
But it's cool. And I think that speaks a lot to our area, right? There's a lot of major tech companies here. And then there's also a lot of startups here. And then there's a lot of universities. So I think that mix of professionals and then young people who are going into the professional world makes it attractive. And then the cost of living, I mean, I can speak from my experience from up north to down here is so much better. The weather's a lot better.
Yeah. I mean, it's really a cool environment from the standpoint that we have a very well-educated population. We have a young population. But if you really go back to it, this is way before you were born. But and before me, to be honest, it was when IBM, when the Research Triangle Park became a thing. IBM came from New York, and they brought people up from Miami or Boca Raton. So you had this culture shift of New York, and most of the people that were coming from Boca Raton were coming from New York, but they'd been in Miami for a while. And you had this divergent of different cultures and backgrounds come into Raleigh, and we never lost that Southern charm, right? People are still nice. I constantly get the comment of people want to help you in entrepreneurship. They want to help you. It's not a transactional meeting. It's like, I really do want to see if I can connect you to the right person or give you a leg up. So we never lost that Southern hospitality thing, but we also accepted better food, better culture, better outlook on life. Like we became more accepting to different thoughts. I mean, and if we're lucky, or especially me, I've lived here, you came into this culture, but we're really lucky that it's been so accepting and progressive and sort of moved. Because if you go to other parts of the state, it's not quite as cool.
Yeah. Because it's still very rural. If you go much outside of Raleigh.
Yeah, rural's not bad. I grew up on a farm, but it's
Same.
if you're in other parts, you don't get those other influxes of knowledge or influxes of experiences. You just sort of live the same thing over and over again. It's hard to understand those experiences, right? So,
there's a lack of diversity, which I think can hurt. Because diversity is obviously good. You want that because then you do get those different ideas coming in.
Yeah.
But you're right. I mean, even though there are not a lot of people that are from this area, like I feel like, and it could just be too that, especially if you're in a corporate environment, right? Like, of course, there's going to be a lot of people who are moving down here for work and things like that. But you certainly do still have that Southern charm because when I first moved down here, and I would be walking down the street and somebody would be like, oh, hey, like, good morning or whatever. I would be like, what is this person doing? Like, are they about to like attack me? Like, what's going to happen?
What do they want? Yeah.
Right. Like, what, like, can I help you? But that's not the mindset. It's just like being polite and saying hello when you walk past somebody. So I love that that's still here, you know, and that I think that people that do move here that aren't from here adapt to that and they kind of change their mindset if they're from, and I'll use up north just because I'm from there. So I feel like I'm not being offensive to people, but, you know, like I say, sometimes y'all.
You don't have to put dollar if you were using it as an example, I think.
Oh, professor points right there. Okay, fair. I like that. So but sometimes and to my point earlier, especially when you're selling to people who live in the South and that's their dialect, like you want to be able to relate to them and use their lingo and slang the same way. Where when I was at my last corporate job and I was covering New York City, I changed y'all to you guys. Yeah. Because that's what they say. Yeah. So it's kind of just adapting your language to who your customer is. But I think from what I've seen that a lot of people that move down here from up north tend to adapt more to the lifestyle because it's just more laid back. So
definitely laid back, and we're slower. I mean, that's a good and bad thing. I mean, but we are, you know, you don't have to rush all the time, right? It's okay to be slow sometimes. I'm not necessarily that way, but it's okay. But you also got to look at the good things. Like, if we didn't have this northern population move down, we would have never had bagels down here. Like, what the heck?
Yeah, or decent pizza.
And true. Yeah, exactly. My favorite pizza is a New Yorker that came down here and opened up. Yeah, exactly.
There's great pizza up there for whatever. I mean, the Italians, right? They've got to figure it out. Exactly. So, you know, there's definitely great parts of both, of people having still the Southern mentality and moving down here and relocating. And, I mean, I literally moved down here and I was here 1 year and I hyped it up so much. My mom followed me the next year because it just makes sense. It's cheaper, it's warmer, and people are nice. Mm-hmm. Like, there's not much more you can ask for.
That's right.
So it was a good move, but you know, I don't think I'm certainly not going back up north. No way. Yeah. Sometimes I visit, but then especially like around Christmas time, I'm like, you live here? Why? I get my dad, he has businesses and stuff. So, but even he has a place down in Florida now, and in the winter, he's never home because he doesn't want to be up in New Jersey.
Enjoying the weather.
Yeah. I don't blame him. I'm like, hey, he worked hard. You deserve a little relaxation.
Do it.
Yeah, do your thing. Well, cool. So anything else? Any fun student projects that you want to highlight, shout out, or anything new that I don't know about at NC State, or is it kind of the same program from when I was there? Granted, this was not very long ago that I left, but...
Yeah. Not necessarily new. I mean, we continue to grow, the our numbers in our classes continue to grow, double in some of the classes. We, you speak of diversity earlier. We look at that from diversity of concentrations and thought. So we have really I think we've done a really good job of doing that, getting more diversity of thought in the classroom. I measure success in terms of where the students land, not startups, and it's been pretty freaking good. So, yeah.
Yeah. So. And I think I just love to think back to, I mean, this was right before I got into the program, because I think I was still probably my first or second year when the program started. But like when Kyle went through it, and there were, it was like him, Jared, Gabe, and maybe one other kid. Nine students the first semester. Okay, 9 students. Yeah. And you're at how many now?
We are around 100 100 to 150 every semester now. Yeah.
But that's insane growth. I mean, to think that.
Some 5 years. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I tell people that my degree is in entrepreneurship, and that's like not even a thing most places. So
yeah,
I think that seeing that type of growth and to your point, the results, right? Like that so many of your students have gone through, and they now do have companies and they're running and they're successful. And if not, then if they don't have their own, they're still in a good, I mean, like if you remember, I'm sure you do, Corey, who was in our class, crushing it at Cisco. I mean, he just got promoted to a great position, but I think he already moved to DC, if I'm remembering correctly, but he's crushing it. And it's like, yeah, he's in the corporate world, but he is killing it. So,
but I also think like what you just went through, like naming Jared, Kyle, Corey, like it's all those connections that you're able to make in the program that are worth way much more in the long run. Like that's what gets me excited. I love seeing you guys like running into you accidentally, and you're grabbing coffee with another student that went through the program, or one that went through like later. I know you've met with students that have come afterwards, and students before you have met with you. Like that relationship and that true caring, right? You want the people that come after you to be successful, and the people that came before you want you to be successful, and that's, I mean, it's pretty freaking cool for me to see that.
It's gotta be. And I'll close on this, but when we were, I think it was one of the first mentorship meetings that I went to, and then I didn't consider myself a mentor, but I wasn't a student. So I asked you, I was like, well, should I sign up as a mentor or like a mentee? Like, I don't really know. You're like, oh no, you can be a mentor. And then I got there, and I'd come from work, so I had professional clothes on. It wasn't like I had a t-shirt on like I do now. But I still tried to look professional when I was a student, when I would go to them, because it made sense. But anyway, so I was talking to a student, and this is like the first one, and we started talking, and somehow it came up like me asking them if they thought I was a mentor or a mentee, and they just instantly knew I was a mentor. And I was just like, all right, I'm like the same age as you. I might be like a year old. I was just like a little offended, because I was like, I feel like I look your age, but I think it was a really cool position.
That's never going to change, by the way. I feel like I look your age, but obviously that doesn't translate, right?
I put on like, especially, so Scott wanted me to wear like this red shirt, and I just red's not my color. So I negotiated to this, and I was like, I'll like still put on some NC State colors, right? And I sent a picture or a video to my team, and they were just like, are you even old enough to do a podcast? I was like, this is what I would basically wear to a tailgate or something. But then I thought back to that story, and I was like, I got this kid telling me that I'm old, and then my team's telling me that I look like I'm 12. I just can't win. But
it's a hard balance. Yeah.
But it was still a cool experience, because I think I had just gone through everything that they're currently going through, it was very easy to relate to them. So but
it's cool.
Yeah, I always try to advise them to just get as involved as possible, because I think that's what differentiated my experience from some of my classmates, and I've talked to some of them that I'm close to, and I know that they wish they had not necessarily tried harder, but maybe just gotten more involved, because it's like, I think you take for granted everything that is literally at your fingertips through college and through especially the program that we have. So, I always try to really like push that on them. I don't know if anybody listens to me when I tell them these things,
for sure.
But I know I tried to do everything I possibly could and meet every person that would talk to me. So,
and it makes so much more sense coming from you than me.
Yeah.
And so we got to continue to do that.
Well, I'm happy to help. And I still, if you have professor openings, I know I said that before, but I still want to do it because I think that would be the most fun job other than running Bride Genie in the world. So, and I think I'd be really good at it.
It is pretty fun. And you would be good at it.
I think so too. I think I'd be relatable, and I have knowledge, and I can now speak in public well. So, I think I could vibe with some students.
You got it.
All right. Well, we'll have to follow up on that, but thank you so much for your time.
Yeah.
Your wine is delicious. Check out the Short Walk, if they have wine left after all these crazy sales, but I'm sure
we get it in every day.
Well, there you go. Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Scott, thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
Not bad though, right?